All right, Brian Bonilla, back with Brian Bonilla here. What did we just talk about, my friend?
Talking Super Bowl with the one and only Tim Nudd, creativity editor at Ad Age. He's been doing this, I think, more than most people have ever been doing this, which is, watching ads, understanding the creativity behind it. And, we talked about the craft of these ads, but also, the trends we're seeing. And it's a great, great conversation.
We get into some predictions at the end on who's going to win the ad meter. And we also got Tim's perspective on overall, how do the ads look this year? And you'll have to listen to see his take on that. And I know you guys are working really hard. So that was really nice that he took the time and you're taking the time, Brian. So thank you. Everybody listen to this episode before the Super Bowl, after, and then check out Ad Age because I believe that you guys are doing the full review list on early the week after on the ratings, a 5-star scale, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not familiar with it, check out last year's. I'm sure you can find it on our website. And, if you want to check out the ads that are out right now, we're constantly updating it until the day of the Super Bowl. So uh,
That
have,
chart is nice. Whoever's running that they're doing a great job.
shout out,
Keep up the good work.
shout out to Corey, our lead design guy. I don't know his exact title. So, but
Go Corey. Go
yeah,
Corey. But nice work. This is a combo. You got agencies reporter. We got a creativity editor here. This is like Tom Brady passing the ball to Edelman here. This 1-2 combo you guys got going on here. So it was really fun. Everybody, keep on listening. It's about to get real.
yeah. Boom.
All right. Tim Nudd and Brian Bonilla, welcome to the show. This is Brian. This is your show. How are you doing today, Tim?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it.
Of course, we did this. Did we do this last year? I think we did this last year.
Yeah, I think we did. Or
So,
we've done a few of these.
a few. Yeah. We're happy to have you back, Tim.
Thank you.
You know, you're a hard person to book right now. I think, like, I appreciate you, taking the time, with all the Super Bowl craziness going on. And yeah, it's the biggest day of the year, right? For advertising.
Sure is. Yeah. And I'll say it's a nice break to have a half hour, 45 minutes this week to just talk about the ads instead of writing about them or, bugging people to see them. So yeah, I appreciate again, you guys having me.
Of course, of course. Let's start it off. But before we get into this year, I had some. Yeah,
Sorry, I already know what's about to happen. Sorry, my dog has his bone. If she starts slamming it around, I'm just
there you go. Proactive, proactive. I was going to say that before we get into this year's Super Bowl, just want to recap. Wanted to go over what's both of your favorite Super Bowl ads of all time. Let's go through round robin, and Brian, you can lead us off.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a good amount, but I think we spoke about this before, but like the puppy monkey baby, I think that it's just like you say that and people remember it, right? And like, I think that's the point, right? And like, um,
Back
people,
this year.
and it's back a little, so which is interesting. And I think, I know like we did a recent story about how like maybe the more modern ads are not as memorable. But the farmer's dog ad, like, I saw it again and I'm like, that for me, like, that's a brand that like it wasn't on my radar. And now it's like when people talk about like natural food, like dog food, like it's like the first brand you hear. So I think like, and it's just a great like ad. So I think to be honest, those have been my two favorite.
Those are fair. Tim, how about you?
Well, I mean, you got to go 1984, probably like the ad that kind of changed everything and kind of made the Super Bowl the Super Bowl. I think that was really important. I love Volkswagen, the Force as well. E-Trade Monkey. It's
Mm.
a Tide ad. Like there's a lot out there that are just super entertaining. The ones that I like best are, I think, the ones that really take that moment of being in the Super Bowl and kind of reference that, or a spot like E Trade Monkey, like that couldn't air at any other time. It was about 30 seconds of a monkey dancing, and it said, "Now we just wasted $2 million." Like it was $2 million to buy a spot in 2000. That spot was made obviously for the Super Bowl, and kind of referencing that night and referencing that kind of shared experience that we're all having in the moment of watching the game. I think those are my favorites usually.
That's interesting because now we see like a lot of lead up in these tentpole moments, trying to get attention before the Super Bowl and after the Super Bowl. It leads into a campaign after the Super Bowl. So to have that spot, play it that one time, acknowledging that moment. I mean, we don't see that maybe as often. I don't know.
No, I think definitely not. It was the Volkswagen ad that started all that back in 2011. You know, like they had a 30 and they had a 60. They only had 30 seconds of airtime, but they had this 60-second spot that they thought was incredible. And the 30 was like a lot less incredible than 60. This was Tim Ellis, who was the CMO at Volkswagen North America at the time. And he had this crazy idea, like, let's run the 60 online on like the Wednesday night before the game. Like literally everyone who was working with him on that campaign thought he was crazy. A lot of the agency was not the agency, but the editor who worked on that spot was actually angry when he saw that it rolled out online. He's like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
And you know, what happened was it shifted everything because they got all this buzz ahead of time. And that's what advertisers do now. They want that sort of 7 to 10 day lead in of buzz before
That's great. You did a whole great podcast about that. I remember listening to that.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it did change everything. I think a lot of the consumers, it's a little frustrating for them. Like the glory days of having everything be a surprise on the game were pretty fun. And maybe we could talk about this too. I think some advertisers are kind of coming back around to that.
I wanted to get like the perspective on that because like you saw like different. I feel like this year we saw like the Grammys become a way to tease these ads, and I feel like I've seen like these like teaser ads more often. I don't know how you feel about it, Tim, but like I feel like I've seen them like spread out longer throughout the month, and almost like a movie trailer or like something you would find, you know, like trying to leak something like. And I don't know if it has to do with the cost of the Super Bowl ad now being like around 7 million, which I think has been the case for a couple of years now. So I don't know what are you seeing in terms of like how people are rolling things out, and like, you know, why do you think people are kind of favoring one or the other or
Yeah. So what I would say is I think definitely these companies want to maximize their investment, and so teasing them ahead of time makes sense for a lot of these brands. You know, getting that pregame buzz kind of is important to them. I think you're right that not only on the Grammys, but I saw several teasers on the AFC NFC championship games are, almost 2 weeks ago now. But then I think at the same time, some brands are coming back around to the idea that like the biggest flex is actually to not pre-release, right?
Mhm.
To have a bigger bang in the moment on the game, when you have 110 million people or whatever, having that energy of a surprise during the game. I think some brands are sort of appreciating that, like Liquid Death is a good example, like an advertiser that very creative, very provocative. They're going to be in the game for the first time this year, but they're not pre-releasing at all. A bunch of them, and we're at an interesting moment right now because it's Thursday as we're recording this, and things are still very much in flux. Like we don't quite know. I think we know like 95% of what's happening for the game. There may be a surprise or two. Who knows? So we don't really have the data pinned down as to how much was pre-released versus last year. I'm not totally sure I'm not totally sure that the pendulum is swinging back to not pre-releasing.
Yeah.
I think majority still are pre-releasing. So, but yeah, I mean, you look at a campaign like Coors Light, right? That Mischief did, like that started on January 13th, and it had sort of weekly updates, and it was a very sort of built out PR plan. I think more and more advertisers are kind of doing that to try to get more bang for their buck.
Yeah. I'm almost curious then, do you think the day-to-day consumer is following along these pre-releases as much as we are? As
Not as much as we are,
Yeah.
but
For the case the Mondays,
the Mondays, I
did it
think,
get covered by other publications? Like I know the typo in Times Square, but how actually involved are people in this?
I mean, that's hard to know, of course, but I think some of that stuff really does, seep into popular media, and that's part of why you use a celebrity as well, so you can get the celebrity media involved. And people are sort of, well known to be obsessed with what celebrities are up to. So that helps kind of, that's part of the strategy of using a celeb in the first place is to get those early sort of earned media placements. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of folks do come into the game cold, which is nice. And you have to remember that the spot has to work on its own as well. So you have to assume people have not seen your teasers. But there's a few different ways to do it. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way. I know consumers tend to like to be surprised. A lot of people actively avoid the teasers, but you understand the business case for the teasers too.
Yeah. And, we have to remember like people aren't like, yeah, like, I'm sure the Grammys, they got a lot of the spots on during the Grammys and the playoffs for the football games got attention, but like people walk around, like they go to the bathroom or like you know what I mean? So like I think we have to remember that like, they're not following these brands like entire like journey a lot of the time. So like, I think we have to kind of like pump the brakes sometimes. I don't think how much like people are paying attention to these brands before the Super Bowl. But I think like, you brought up the typo, Gino, like, I had someone bring up like, oh, I got this weird like beer, the Mondays the case, and they were like, I just got this weird like beer at a liquor store. I'm like, oh, okay. So like people are notice. I think that you notice stuff like that, right? Like that things are out of the norm, or like, I think Seal like is doing like, he's in that spot with that could be made.
Yeah, the Mountain Dew spot.
The Mountain Dew spot, and I think he's doing the talk show thing, and that's like kind of the other way you promote it, right? You get these celebrities on talk shows to promote the brand for you, and or you do what Tostinos did, right? With like they got when they marketed their puffer product like months in advance, and like they got organic reach from like celebrities. So there's a lot of ways, right? There's a lot of ways for sure.
Yeah, I mean the course thing's interesting. Like I happen to know more about that because I wrote a story about it. The packaging story there is almost as interesting as the advertising story because they didn't just do a limited thing where it's like 3 convenience stores in like Montana have the Mondays packaging. They did almost 2 million. They replaced I think every 12-pack nationally. So people who buy Coors Light presumably going to notice that that's happening and wonder what's going on, and that's going to tie into the Super Bowl when they see the spot and so on. So all this stuff's interconnected, and I agree with you, Brian, that we shouldn't assume consumers follow these brand journeys. But when a brand like Coors Light commits to a big packaging rollout like that, like they are assuming that there's going to be fairly mass knowledge of what's happening ahead of time.
Well, I think that's it's about. I think we're seeing this like mixed media model, right? Like that's a design play, that's a packaging play. You see the out of home play, right? Like, I think you're not just teasing these ads on like TV anymore, right? And I think the brands that are doing it that way are gonna, get more attention. But it's also a big risk, right? It's like it's also, I'm sure the cost, right, of changing, packaging and creating a whole new thing, right? Like there is a risk involved with that too, right? So it's not like any brand will buy that idea, right? So yeah,
definitely.
So to both of you, what would you say, seeing the ads released early, the ones that are, you said 95% you have a pretty good dial on, Tim?
Well, yeah, and a lot of some of those we know about but can't really talk about. But
you've seen a good amount of them.
We should know. I haven't seen all of them, but I know of most of them, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we do, we do work with brands to hopefully have go into the weekend kind of knowing most of what's happening.
Love it. Yeah. So with that being said, and the knowledge that you have, I guess, what's the headline or topic of this year's Super Bowl for the commercial specifically?
I'm curious what you think.
Lamb. I don't know. I haven't been super impressed this year, to be honest with you. I wish I could say I have been. There's been, part of my job in the week leading up is to write sort of little mini reviews of every spot. And we collect those and we publish that big story kind of right at the final whistle of the game. So that's why I'm usually pretty busy ahead, this week ahead. And I got to say, like, there's a lot of 3s, a lot of 2.5s, a lot of 3.5. Like, there's not a lot of 4s and 5s, which I feel like at this time last year we saw more 4s and 5s.
What was some of the 5s last year as context?
Well, the Google Javier in frame spot was really cool. Volkswagen, I really liked the Reese's spot last year. I think we actually had 5 or 6 5s last year, which is kind of unusual. I don't know if I have a 5 yet, Gina, this year.
No 5s?
We got a few 4s. I think we got a couple 4.5s maybe. But like I said, we haven't seen everything yet, and I'm still hoping against hope that things, we're going to get some classics. We'll see.
How do you rate the 5-star scale? Is this just from Tim's brain, from your knowledge of
A
what you've
little
seen
bit,
through all these years?
I get to have first crack at a rating, and then Janine and I will talk about it. She's the editor, of course, and yeah, I mean, we have editors meetings every day where we often will, this week we talk a lot about stuff that's coming out. People get their opinion. I don't feel like my opinion is, the be all end all. Certainly not. It's nice to have feedback from the staff and learn, particularly stuff that came out this week, like the Coffee Mate thing and the Mountain Dew. Like some of these more absurd spots, like I think sometimes it's just a matter of personal taste, Other times I think that there's things that you can point to that even if the absurdity is kind of the style, that there can be sometimes a really interesting brand message inside there that's can be memorable even despite the silliness of an ad. Like not every good ad is structured the same, and not every bad ad is structured the same. So that's part of what's interesting, I think, for us in our position, is kind of looking at creative and weighing not just whether it's entertaining, but like, what is it really doing for the brand? What's the business case here? So we try to factor that into our reviews as well.
I think, like I felt the same way, Tim, about like the creativity of the ads. I think, like the celebrity component. I mean, I think it's like conversation every year now, right? But like, I feel like we just see it increase every year, almost like the need to have a celebrity in these spots. And it's like, I don't know how you feel, but it feels a little bit like just like too much at this point. Like almost like, I'm thinking about like the Hex Clad ad, like Pete Davidson is in there. And,
Gordon.
That's an okay ad. I think like, I like the idea of like Gordon Ramsay. He makes sense. He's been using the product forever, and the alien tie, that like, it's a cool idea, I think. But, when you put Pete Davidson in there, like you could have inserted any celebrity. Like it has nothing to do with Pete Davidson, right? Like I like the ads where like the seal is a seal, right? Like that was a meme or whatever on the internet. Like I like that, or like the with the mustache and the
FCD. Pringles.
Well, the other one, but also the other one, mustache. This is like a mustache competition.
Yeah. You mean the eyebrows one?
Yeah.
The Eugene Levy one for Little Caesars? Yeah.
Does that make it?
Yeah. Like that, his eyebrows are iconic, right? So like he's on like, in Hex Clad's case, I feel like you could insert anyone in Pete Davidson role. And like, I think that's where the celebrity use is maybe not, like that's more for earned media than anything else.
How many Super Bowls now in a row has Pete Davidson been featured? It seems got to be the last 4 at least. If I were to make a prediction there,
I mean, yeah, there has to be proof of like it's working for the brand. Right? Like, it's almost like Snoop Dogg. Like there's a reason they're using Pete Davidson, right? Like it gets attention.
Yeah, but I agree with you on the randomness, though. Like part of the reason I sort of like the When Harry Met Sally for Hellman's, like that's that's a cultural touchstone movie. Like people like to see that sort of thing. Like to me, that's kind of a winning strategy. The losing strategy for me is when you just have kind of a celebrity soup. And I don't want to talk out of turn on certain spots whether I liked them or not, but I feel like an interesting campaign is the Uber Eats. Matthew McConaughey. That stuff's been running all football season long. Special Group US does that, and I really like that campaign. I'm not saying I don't like the Super Bowl ad. I just think that like they've packed all these celebrities in there, and it's a well-made spot, no doubt. But I think the charm of like the original executions kind of gets slightly lost when you sort of, I don't know, Super Bowl-ize the concept. I mean, I feel like celebrities, when they're done well, I'm not knocking celebrity ads. I think celebrity ads can be really good and they can be effective. But this sort of formula of like piling one on top of another, I think even consumers are like, this is just ridiculous. Where's the brand? What's the message here?
Yeah, last year I really enjoyed the Etsy ad, and that was made by Orchard. Um, and I in my group chats brought that up. I really liked the idea there, and then we had this discussion, but it didn't have that celebrity. It needs that Super Bowl celebrity of some sort, a little touch that's still paired with the good idea to bring it to life. I don't. Did they have a celebrity? Am I
No, they did not.
Yeah.
No.
What I will say, like, you were talking earlier, Tim, about like ads that like use the moment, right? So like, you look at the DoorDash ad, you look at the Tubi ad that was a big deal. You look at Coinbase, you look at Reddit. Like, I don't think you need a celebrity. Like, I think if you have a celebrity, fine. Farmer's Dog, the Kia ad,
For sure, yeah.
like you really don't. Like, I feel like that's a bit of a cop out these days. Like, and like, to be fair, I think you're trying to make it worth it, right? So you're like, let's go all out. But like, if it doesn't tie to if people don't remember the brand, like, if, that's a red flag. And try to do something with it. And I think we're just seeing. I spoke to like a creative agency. I was just like kind of tired of seeing this, and I wonder if I imagine consumers might feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, it's become the safe way to do it, right? Everything kind of when you have so much money at stake and so many stakeholders in the process, and like the safe thing to do is to follow what's become kind of the celebrity formula. But you absolutely don't need a celebrity. I mean, 1984 Volkswagen Force, like Monster.com, like that, the When I Grow Up spot that was so famous. Like none of these had celebrities in them. Like the idea was super strong. The ads were super charming. I really like the Google spot this year. I think that doesn't have a celeb in it.
Whoa, is that out?
It just came out this morning, I believe. The 2-minute. They're running it as a 60 on the game, but the 2 minutes out.
Okay, I'll have to check that out. Is that by gut?
I believe it was done in house at Google Creative Lab. And then like the sloths thing for Coors Light is funny. Like no celebs in that. So I don't know. I feel like you're also paying a lot for a celeb, so it adds to the cost. And if you don't need it, and I think celebs often kind of take the spotlight away from the brand. Well, not always, but sometimes. So, it's become kind of this weird formula that, you know it when you see it, and it's a little disappointing.
Well, I also think like I was talking to some people, and like it used to be like, celebrities didn't want to be in ads. Like it was a bit of a like kind of like you don't really want to be known as like an advertising actor or whatever, right? Like, and now it's like cool, right? Like for these to kind of do this, but I also think like, when it's a Super Bowl ad, it's not something that's always ongoing. Like I credit Matthew McConaughey for like doing all these Uber Eats ads like throughout the year, like and making them like at least charming, like like a bit funny and like, but like I've seen that shift too, where like now celebrities are really okay with being tied to like advertising and branding. I don't know if like you've noticed that, Tim, but like,
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I agree with you. I think it used to be kind of a badge of shame, and now it's like kind of hip to have a brand connected to you and you connected to a brand. I think that's very true.
yeah.
Can we expect any interesting twists in this year Super Bowl? And Tubi, Coinbase, Reddit-esque.
I mean, a lot of times those twists, those brands are very quiet.
They wouldn't even tell you all. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I mean, we get like a feeling, we get an idea of some things sometimes, but
Yeah, I think there'll be some surprises. Whether it's a brand you wouldn't expect or a creative approach you wouldn't expect. We definitely have heard some info on some stuff that'll be fun. It'll be out of the ordinary. I don't know if it'll be on the level of like a Coinbase, that kinds of a bouncing QR code weird. I don't know if that's going to happen. But, we haven't seen Liquid Death either. Like they're always really creative.
Oh yeah.
OpenAI,
which I don't know if that's a national spot. I don't know if we've seen that or not.
we confirm we're working on a story on something with that.
Okay.
I don't know if it's national either.
Interesting. Do we know what agency worked on that? I'm assuming it was AI.
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
It could be in-house,
Yeah.
I think Google's in-house, right?
Yeah.
Which, other than probably Mischief and Coors Light, who do you think is winning the pre-Super Bowl conversation amongst the industry?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm a little bit, unfortunately, like haven't been monitoring it enough to know what's really been breaking through. Like my gauge is kind of what we've been discussing internally at Ad Age.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
I
one,
mean,
and let me rephrase, which one do you think will have the highest cultural conversation post Super Bowl amongst consumers?
Mm.
that's a big question mark too. I mean, I think the seal thing is laugh out loud funny, and that it's it's one of those it's like the good kind of stupid humor that can sometimes do.
It could be.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of moving parts right now, honestly, so I couldn't really tell you.
You know, Bud Light's ad with Shane Gillis. I think Shane Gillis and like having those people in there, I think that's gonna be a conversation because of what Bud Light's been obviously like what they've been dealing with in the past couple of years. So I think that's gonna just be like a natural conversation, right? Like,
Absolutely.
it may not be exactly just about the ad. It may just be about like the brand and the feature and things like that. But
That's a good point.
that's a moment for them for sure. I'm curious about all this nostalgia, like advertising we've been seeing, like it's been so big in the past few years, and like Harry Met Sally. Like I'm very curious how that's gonna relate to people. I think that ad I'm imagining like a Super Bowl party, like when that scene comes on, like people are just gonna have to like pay attention. Like I think like you just don't not pay attention to that, right?
Sure.
I think that might be a bit surprising for people. Well, and the Instacart ad I thought was pretty interesting. Where they have all the different like logos and brands and the puppy monkey baby and everything. I'm hoping people catch that. I don't know if people
Oh, yeah. I was all over that. That was awesome.
will be. Yeah. I mean, like in terms of like agencies, like Tim,
Yeah.
just like, what do you think? Like, do you think this world's gotten bigger for agencies? Like in terms of the moment, like given how much like, the social media is so big now, and like there's so many different types of like advertising moments now, or like ways to advertise that. Like, I'm curious, like, has the like idea of a Super Bowl ad like increased in value for like someone's career, like how agencies feel about it, or is it about the same?
Well, I think it's definitely still, it's a really coveted kind of thing to do, right? Like, and we've got a few first timers
Mm.
this year. I think Nice and Frank is doing the Haagen-Dazs spot on the Quality Meats to the GoDaddy campaign. So some of these sort of smaller indie places are getting Super Bowl assignments, which is awesome for them. It's a really great opportunity to sort of be part of this really big night and so on. Interesting that Artist Equity is doing a couple of spots, right? I know they've done the Duncan work in the past, some Duncan work. So they did the Duncan spot. They're also doing, I believe it's the Stella
Mhm.
or spot. So, to me, that's like a different model of agency too, like the sort of maximum effort type, celebrity led kind of agency, which, I think they grew up like we all did in the commercial world of commercials, and their talent doesn't cost them anything because they are the talent, and they can sort of make this bring their brand of humor to certain brands that it fits with. So that's an interesting play for them. But it's interesting. Agencies come and go in the Super Bowl. It used to be BBDO would have 4 or 5 spots in the game. They're not in the game this year. I don't know if it's the first time in a while that they haven't had a spot. So some of the bigger agencies that we've have become known for doing Super Bowl. I mean, Wyden's still squarely in the game. They've got at least 3 spots that we know of running, and they've been a pretty strong force in the game over the past 10 years too. So yeah, I mean, to pretend like it's just another spot and just another assignment is definitely not the case. Like this is a big deal for creatives. It's a big deal for agencies. It's a real just a moment to be in the spotlight.
It's interesting about like you mentioned like Nice and Frank quality needs and agencies getting more opportunity. Like that really was never the case, and like I think it speaks to like just how marketers are approaching agency relationships these days. Like, they might have their AOR relationship, but like they're not afraid to like go outside of that these days and
Mhm.
have a roster model of agencies. And I think it's good for the industry because you're just like getting more perspectives, right? If you're willing to like, take a risk here and there. But I think overall it's probably good for the industry. But there's more competition, you know. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, some of these smaller agencies, I think, you know, getting a Super Bowl assignment can be great, but it also comes with everything a Super Bowl assignment comes with, which is a lot of oversight, a lot of red tape sometimes, some restrictions on what you can do from a PR point of view. So I think for indies, it's like sometimes it's, not as much freedom as they're used to, perhaps.
Mhm.
That's an interesting dynamic for them. But it's nice to see smaller shops. I mean, even Mischief doing the Coors Light stuff, like as I understand it, that was like a jump ball creatively for among Coors Light's agencies. So some of these indies can bring, I think, some really cool, interesting ideas that maybe don't often come out of the big networks. Or and then if you got a marketer on the client side who's pretty open to that, um, some pretty cool ideas can get on the game, which is nice.
So I didn't.
Is Special US independent or is it a part of a holding company?
Yeah, they're an independent network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they've been in it with Uber Eats for a couple of years now.
Yeah, I mean that's their big client right in
Yeah.
the US and has been for a while. I think they're trying to diversify a bit, but that's their big, and they do a great job on that campaign. They have for years.
I didn't know that it was a lead up. There was a lead up campaign to this moment. But you were saying those spots already aired.
Well,
This-
the campaign is called "Football is for Food," and it's if you watched any NFL this year, you would have seen him because Matthew McConaughey was in a couple of spots with Christian McCaffrey,
Harry, right?
Jerry Rice. It was like all about how there's all these signals, food kind of related imagery or names or words or whatever, and the Super Bowl spot takes that to sort of a absurd degree. But I thought the writing on that campaign's been great. And like I said earlier, I think they sort of supersized it for the Super Bowl, which I think it still works. It's just to me it's like not quite as fun and dialogue driven as the other stuff was. It's more sort of cartoony, I guess. But I think it'll stand out probably.
Are you, talking about those like agency client relationships? Like, are there like, a lot of the automakers, sat out this year, which have traditionally worked with, pretty much the same agencies in the past three Super Bowls. Like, are there like at this point, are there like certain agency client relationships that you like look forward to every year, or like you're looking at this year? Like, Uber Eats has been kind of consistent now. So I'm curious, like, what maybe not now, or like in the past, or anything like that.
I'm not really sure. Like, it does shift around a bit. I mean, I'm looking at the list of spots now.
Yeah.
The automakers, like you say, Kia and David and Goliath used to be in it every year, and like they're not in it now. A lot of tech companies kind of going with in-house spots, whether it's Meta or um, you know Salesforce. Like some of these companies, there's a lot of in-housing too that's happening. So I don't, there's not necessarily a client agency combo that, I think is sort of always delivering on Super Bowl or anything like that. That's part of what's interesting too, is kind of the way things, shift and change. But yeah, I mean, I think to me, like having a few more indies in the game is kind of the bigger story this year.
Right.
Yeah. So let's get into some predictions then. If you guys, and if you don't feel comfortable, I will. I will absolutely
Sure.
own this and make my predictions, but I want to open it up to y'all. Which ad do you think will win the ad meter? And I know we kind of alluded to this earlier, but ad meter, for the listeners out there, this is the popularity contest from consumers from all over that vote, not just a panel of ad professionals. So any early predictions here, Brian or Tim?
I think Mountain Dew is going to do quite well. I think the seal joke is going to be, and it's not just that joke. It's like it was actually, that spot was cobbled together really nicely. I think it's really funny. I think, and Google, I think, is very strong. Farmer's Dog, I think, won the ad meter a couple years ago with quite a similar, not super similar, but same tone. Google does a really nice job. It's not an easy thing to do to create like a heartfelt spot. Like often it can feel kind of cynical or like manipulative to do something emotional
from that
Um,
brand. Yes.
And then it also it promotes AI. It promotes the Gemini software that the Pixel phones have. So to sort of promote, and we all know how poorly AI has been advertised, in the past year. It's not something people are that comfortable with. So for Google to be able to come out and tell a story, I mean, I don't know if you saw the Apple ads trying to push their Apple Intelligence. They were very hit or miss. Like when they missed, it felt kind of creepy. And they're like, oh, they don't understand how consumers really feel about this stuff. But I think this spot, and whether or not people will actually use Gemini the way it's used in this commercials is a question. But like the way the spot is made, and the way that it prioritizes the humans in the spot, using using the AI kind of as a tool, it's really, really well done. And I think it'll finish top 5 probably. This is all caveated by haven't seen some things that could do very well as well from some very creative brands.
Unless you know something that you want to share.
Probably at the moment, but I think Liquid Death. Everyone loves what Liquid Death does almost all the time. So
Yeah.
unless they're taking some huge swing that's that's a big risk of failure, which I don't expect them to. I think their spot will probably be good.
Yeah.
So
didn't they bring a witch to the Super Bowl one year?
yeah, they've done a bunch of like funny tie-ins. They did a regional Super Bowl spot 2 years ago where it was a bunch of kids, like 10-year-olds, chugging the product because the product is made to look like alcohol, like the packaging.
Yeah. Pretending they were drunk.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, Liquid Death, that's a good, I mean, if you just randomly said that now without knowing it, it's probably a good shot that'll be on the ad meter. But you went with Google, you went with Seal.
Yeah, the Mountain Dew as well. I enjoyed it.
All right, Brian, we're clipping this. This is going to be all over. I'm going to be Tim's takes.
We got a bunch of texts right after this. Look, I think Coors Light, I think people like, animals, but like they're like it's like funny and like in like an actually funny way. And it's not it also depends on what goes before and what goes after, right? So like I'm picturing like maybe a few celebrity ads and then like it breaks up the monotony, right? And that's very important too when it comes to ads, like the placement, right? So I'm picturing that. I think the Seal thing is just going to catch a lot of people's attention. I'm curious how the like Crash the Super Bowl ad is going to do. Doritos, like that was a very well made ad, and that was like a fan contest made.
Big time.
And I think Harry Met Sally is going to be surprising, like for people. And I think like everyone knows that scene, right? Like even I know that scene. I watched Harry Met Sally for the first time last year, so it's like I've known that scene even before that. Like I watched the movie, so I think those are my 3 predictions. But we'll see, because like the Kia spot last year did really well from David and Goliath, and like I wasn't, I didn't know that was going to do that well. So
Yeah, we don't know how the people will react. We don't. And I think the Dun Kings is going to take the top of the ad meter.
You're probably right.
I appreciate they're being consistent. You know what I mean? Like,
Did you see the teaser? The teaser is awesome. I mean, he's in the Vatican coffee beans.
Jeremy Strong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does look good. I forgot about that actually. Yeah.
I love him as an actor, and he really committed to this. I think people are gonna love, like, people just love that pair within it. And like, I think in the Stella ad, like, Matt Damon mentions Ben Affleck, and then Ben Affleck mentions Matt Damon in the teaser for Dunking. So like,
Yeah.
I think like they're really like hyping each other up, and like people really gonna like resonate with that,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And also, is that even Ben Affleck's real act? Like he's kind of playing up the Boston
I don't think he actually talks like that.
Yeah, I don't think he does either. Yeah.
But number one, the Duncan, that's not going to be released. That's not going to be pre-released. So another example of keeping the surprise till the game.
Was it? I don't think it was pre-released last year either.
No, I don't think so.
Look, I mean,
They kept running after.
it did keep running.
Yeah.
I give credit like when celebrities actually, are involved and like I love when celebrities try to make ads, because I think when they're really committed, like they can actually make something great. So like I appreciate that they're like so invested in it,
And they love the brand. It's authentic, right?
Yeah.
Boston. Wonderful gentlemen. Is there anything else that we didn't go over?
No, I think that's it. Like I think, I'm hoping I'm wrong, like because I felt like you Tim, about the creativity of the ads. Like I don't want to feel that way. So I'm hoping, there are some surprises. People do like the ads, but yeah, we'll be live tweeting, right, Tim? I don't know if you're live streaming anything but
Yeah, we'll be doing some stuff on Instagram Live. We're going to be interviewing some of the creators of the ads on Instagram Live. So that should be fun. We're not going to be live the whole game, but we're going to be doing hits kind of here and there. So yeah, definitely follow Ad Age on Instagram if you're not already. And we should have some fun stuff, across on Blue Sky as well. Ad Age is on Blue Sky this year. So we're going to be live. What's the tweet in Blue Sky? I don't know what it's called, but we're going to be messaging on Blue Sky.
Nice. So I'll be in that live. I'll be joining that live stream, and then everybody after the game, Break Entering is doing a after party live stream on Instagram as well. A little late night show.
Awesome.
We got some ad creators as well, and we're probably just going to tell a bunch of jokes and do it in our style. So we'll see everybody after the game. Tim, you're more than welcome. Brian, you're more than welcome if you want to chime in. If you're up that late, I'm not sure how it works
sure
for
we
you
will
all.
will be, yeah. I'm trying to get the DoorDash code into the system. So
The whole line?
yeah, friends wanted to do it, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
That was fun. We just went on Reddit and found it, but that was cool.
All right, gentlemen. Well, keep on going strong. We're almost done. And best of luck throughout. I know it's a lot of work for you all. So we'll be there
Thanks
with
so
you.
much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Take care.